What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to another episode of 5 Influential Horror. Today, I am joined again by Jordana from Pretty Killer Podcast.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I've been trying to think through these lists as people send them to me. I think you have at least one for sure, maybe two that have not been on anyone else's list, which is always, super exciting. So,
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about her influential horror and why she picked them. This is a good list. I'm excited. It's got, I'm like looking at it in my notes. It's like, it's so diverse,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like some people's influential horror is like the same, like there's themes or something that's kind of consistent, but you're just kind of like all over the place.
And I was like, okay, influential, like specifically, obviously, like to me, but there's ones that are just like so concrete, but like they're not my favorite. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not bad way, but I just wanted to like stay true to the ones that really had an impact on me.
Yeah, and that's perfect because that's what I'm going for. Because it's like because the movies that have impacted us in any sense, whether it's horror or not, are not necessarily favorites, right? I mean, that happens all the time. So I think that's great. And I knew at least two of the ones that were going to be. I knew these two were going to. There's two of them that I was like, these are definitely going to be on her list. Because you talk about them so much.
You asked me, and then I was like, oh wait, here you're like, take your time to think about it. I'm like, here's the three off the top of my head, and then
you knew them.
Like, wait, let me send you my other two.
Yeah, and in the three that you sent originally is two that I knew would be on the list.
Of course.
So your first one is 1978's Halloween.
Yes. I mean, that one is so apparent, I feel like, when it comes to me. And
yes.
And you know what? I had this discussion with my husband because I know that you love Black Christmas.
Yeah.
And I feel like those kind of like coincide because, really Black Christmas is the one that started the slasher. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like
The
whole slasher subgenre. But I feel like with Halloween, that one just did something to me on so many levels. Like my development of what I like in horror, like loving the slasher genre, the simplicity, the building of the tension, like the unknown, and then like again the simplicity of his mask. Like I think my years in 78 is some of the most like iconic but terrifying scenes still to this day.
Yeah, and I think what is true about Halloween specifically is it's not only a film that has impacted people at like an individual level of like things that they like, things that it's shaped the way some horror authors write. Like there's a lot of impact in that way, but Halloween is also an influential film for the genre. It's not just individuals that really loved it or that felt certain ways about it, or like you said, shaped like what they were interested in. This shaped what we now have as a slasher genre, even now. So, I mean, it's influential across the board.
Yeah, and even like the musical aspect of it is those, you hear those notes start and you're automatically like, yes. And it used to scare me so much when I was younger, and like now around Halloween time we'll just put it on and think nothing of it. But I love it so much, so it had to be first one on there.
Yeah, and that's one I knew because you were like, and Jordana's links will be in the description for this episode. Definitely follow her; she's on everything. Yes. And like all your clips and stuff that you put together, which always looks so good, by the way. I'm so jealous of like your ability to just make these things look so great.
Don't even ask me how, because I am not tech savvy and I don't know how I do it. And at the end, I'm like, whoa, like I did a Friday the 13th one and it matched up perfectly with the sound, with like this punching sound. And my husband's like, how did you do that? I said, I didn't even put that sound in. It just matched.
Oh my God.
I don't even know.
That's great. But you do a lot of clips and stuff, around Halloween, the film specifically. So like I said, I knew, and just from talking to you in general, I knew this one was going to be pretty high on the list for sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it's so funny what's behind you. So your second one is Jaws.
Yes. Which is, I mean, not only is it such a influential horror movie, but it's such an like influential film.
It is.
period. And like whether or
Yeah.
not, like, if you don't like it or if you do enjoy it, like you can't deny the impact that it made
Oh,
with
yeah.
like, the storyline not even truly being about the shark, and like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, and it
So
took
true.
me such a long time, not a long time, but it took me such a long time to like dissect that, other than a creature feature, that there's way more beneath the
Layers.
surface. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, uh,
Beneath the surface.
pun intended.
Yeah.
But it scared me. It instilled that fear of that
Mhm.
childhood fear when you're in the pool and you're swimming and you open your eyes and you envision that there's like this huge shark.
So true.
You know what I mean? Like, I
So
don't know.
true.
I just think it's great.
Yeah.
Sadly, like the sequels that followed were not as great. I still love them.
Yeah.
I think it really kind of like set the tone for a really good creature feature. And it's another real fear. Like the ocean is scary as hell,
It definitely is. Yeah.
and then you throw in this, 3 ton shark that,
Yeah.
and you know what? And that's the other thing that I wanted to touch on is they pushed the limits with this one way back in the 70s. Like,
Yeah.
I have a problem with animals dying in movies. Like, I hate when they do that in horror. I think it's just such a lame cop out to like
Yeah. Yeah.
kill, and I'm not saying kill kids. I'm not promoting that at all, but they pushed the boundaries with this one with Alex Kentner. Like his death scene, and when it happens, you're just like, did they really do that? And it's so graphic to like a degree because you just see like chopped pieces. But
Yeah.
I remember that pan shot on Brody when stuff's happening and that adrenaline rush and just feeling
Yeah.
like these emotions. So that's definitely
Yeah.
my list.
When it comes around summertime, which we're getting into soon,
Yep.
and Jaws always comes up in conversation. Everybody revisits in the summer because that's what you want to watch before you go to the beach, I guess. But
I know.
it's like it's one of those things where like there still are people that legitimately argue that it's not a horror movie. And I remember like I get so sick of that of seeing that because I think horror is subjective, regardless of what you're talking about, whether
Yep.
it's a shark movie or not. But this one in particular, at a very basic level, is a creature feature. But what my argument has always been is that on a deeper level, Jaws is psychological horror. I mean, it's when you consider all of the story and the men surrounding this other shark part of the storyline,
Yep.
it's a psychological horror film. And I think, and I'm first of all, I'm deathly afraid of sharks, and I do mean death. Like I went to the beach one time. I was only in the water up to like maybe my hips, and
Yeah.
I saw a fin. Right.
Yeah.
I've never ran so fast in my life, and it was dolphins.
Well, so it could have been an amazing experience.
It
And
could
you're
have
like,
been so cool, but I was like, too risky. I'm out. And I like bolted. I'm terrified of sharks. When I was a kid, because I love shark movies, I love sharks as a creature.
yes.
I know a lot about them. My son is super into sharks. Like I'm here for sharks, right?
Right.
And I love shark horror movies, but you will not catch me doing anything in the ocean. Never. Like nothing. Never.
It really makes you like question things, because even if you like love sharks though,
Yeah.
shark attacks usually happen when they're like, it's to your ankle or to like the mid-length of
it's
your
not
leg.
when you're no, exactly. Yeah.
And then you like see these videos of these great whites that are Bruce-esque, and you think to yourself like, holy shit, like they do exist out there like for real, and it's so scary, and I just love it. But here's my thing too is this one was so influential no matter which way you look at it, that it's one of the movies that hasn't been remade, because I feel like people know that that's kind of like
it's off limits.
And I say that, and I'm going to jinx myself. You watch this episode next year, and it's going to be me like bitching about whoever's remaking it. Like David Gordon Green is going to do it.
Yeah. Well, they'd never be able to do it for a lot of reasons. It's kind of like the Blair Witch of the shark world, right? Because it was the first like this. It was the first like this. There have been countless of silly shark movies. Countless.
Yes. But some of my favorite, like Santa Jaws.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Yeah. One of my favorites is Sky Sharks, which is the one with the Nazis riding the sharks and the Nazi zombies riding the sharks in the air. That's one of my favorites. So it's like,
that.
Oh, girl, you would probably absolutely eat it up. Pun not intended. It is hilarious. Like it is such a fun. I mean, it's just one of those like put it on, don't
Yep.
think about anything, and just enjoy it. It is so over the top stupid.
I need to
Um,
watch it.
yeah, and I loved it, and I'm really picky about stuff like that. But when it comes to like sharks,
Yep.
dinosaurs, crocodile, any of that kind of stuff, I can watch that and it be silly. But I
Yes.
think that like this is just so serious. It's such a serious film, and it, like you said, it has so many layers. There's
Yes.
so much going on. And I mean, the truth is like what's really, and I don't know if this happened to you, maybe like after a revisit as you were an adult, but
Yep.
I saw Jaws as a kid. I mean, it's rated PG. Am I
Yeah.
wrong? I think it's PG because I
I
think that was before PG-13.
Yeah, and it was kind of like here it's going to be in this like classification, but this one is pretty brutal because, like I
It
said,
has, yeah,
so many scenes were just like polarizing to me. It was just
I
I don't
know.
know, so scary. And I watched it young, and I was born in Orlando,
Oh,
so we were at the beach all the damn time, and I was just like, it didn't really. It's so funny. I look back at it; it didn't phase me too much then, but it scared me more in a pool. Make sense of that? Like my
I was the same way about pools though, especially as the sun went down and there
yes.
started to be like shadows on the
And we would always be down there because it was like my grandparents' complex, and they had a really, really nice pool, and that's where we spent pretty much all our free time.
yeah.
And you just nailed it on the head. It would be like dusk, and it would be like the last, 20 minutes, and I would just be sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh, ready to go."
I
And
know.
I,
It's
I also,
yeah, and I think too, like so when I watched it as a kid, I
yeah,
remember it scared me. I was scared of sharks,
yeah,
but I also revisiting it as an adult, especially as one who that I've been seeing horror, a lot more obviously and stuff.
yeah.
I didn't remember how bad some of those scenes were. So when my child was like young, he was young.
Yeah.
I thought it would be fun to see what he thought of the shark movie, but I'm
Yep.
not remembering the screaming, the blood, the gore. I wasn't even thinking about it. I knew obviously the big boat scene, there's gore because but it's one of those things where it's like I didn't remember how bad it was. And we get to the first kill and there's all that screaming. And I was like, oh, I'm such a horrible parent. Like,
You're like looking over the kid. He's
I
like
totally
scared at the
forgot
screen.
that it was that bad, but it is. It's gruesome.
It's pretty intense. And even and I don't know about your kid, but like my daughter, when she watched it, she cried when they blew him up. She was really upset.
Oliver, yeah, he is more concerned about the sharks than he is the human beings.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, because we watched another one, 47 Meters Uncaged, which is like
Yep.
one of my favorites. I love that one.
So good.
And there's that one part where they're in that, like, I don't know what you call it, but that opening where it's just like in a circle and there's the land above them and it wraps around and the sharks get out of the tunnels. And
Yes.
that whole scene
Mhm.
is really a lot because I think there's like two people in that scene that die, two or three.
Yep.
And it's bloody and gory, and you see the shark, and they're scary, they're menacing. And I remember, like after that scene, I'm like doing check-ins. I'm like, was that too much? Is that too scary? Do we need to? And he's just like, where'd the sharks go? And I'm just like,
That's all you're concerned about is
that's
where those.
it. F the humans. Don't give a shit about them.
Yep.
Where the sharks at?
That was like me with Pippet or Tippet or the dog that dies in Jaws. They did that scene, and I was like, oh no, they did not just kill that dog. And then it goes into like the kids scene, and I'm just like, damn.
They got you all in like one little lump sum of pain.
Yeah, yeah. And we got to go see that in 3D because they released it for its whatever the 25th anniversary, and we got to go see it in 3D, and it was so amazing. And we all went together, and my daughter was like, she loved Quint. She thought that he was great. And then I'm thinking to myself, you've seen this before and you knew he died. And she was like, it's getting to the boat part. And she grabs me. She's like, does Quint die? I'm like, yes.
She forget.
I'm like, yes, he's the one that gets the most brutal kill.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it in 3D, but for my birthday last year, my best friend and I went and saw it in IMAX. Ooh. And I don't know that there will ever be a theater experience that could ever top that. Because seeing that in IMAX, and it was on $3 movie day. Remember when they did that everywhere? That
Oh
was
my
back in like September of last year. And I was
yes.
like, dude, this is like fucking meant to be. We gotta go. Like, we gotta go see this. Like,
Perfection,
and
yeah.
so, and we did. We went and saw it. And I mean, like, by far, my number one best theatrical experience with a horror film is going
So
to see
good.
Jaws in IMAX. If anyone gets a chance to see it on the big screen, whether it's
Yeah.
IMAX or 3D, or even if it's neither, it's just playing at like local theater,
Yep.
do it. Because
You
I
have
never got to
to.
see it on a big screen, and it was life changing.
Like life-changing in every degree that you have the music and the
Oh
ambiance.
God, so good.
And
Oh,
you want to talk about scores, like John Williams with this one is also iconic, and not only for like the menacing, like the deep parts, but when there's the boat scene, like the boat where they're with the barrels that pop up and it's kind of like
it's like
uplifting. It's
adventure music. Yeah.
I just love it so much, and I completely agree with you. Like, see the so I have the main Jaws, and then I have one over here because we went to our local horror fest and they showed it on 35 millimeter, and they were
Oh,
serving mimosas. So I mean, you want to talk
check and
about?
check.
I was like in and in, and it was such an amazing experience. And when Brody delivered, you're gonna need a bigger boat. The
Mm.
theater went crazy, like clapping, cheering, and I was just like, I am in my element. Like it was
Oh, I
goosebumps.
bet that was really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. Oh my
Yes.
God.
No, I loved it.
That is really cool. And for it to be like on your list. So like, yeah, that's wild. It
Absolutely.
definitely was amazing seeing it on the big screen. Not anything I would like. I was decked out. I have a Valentine's Day shirt I made years ago that says "I choose you,"
Yeah.
CHEWS, and it's got Jaws, or I
I
mean
need that.
Bruce coming up.
Yeah.
And I have Jaws earrings, like the whole nine. Like
Yeah.
I was decked. I was ready to go see this in theaters, and
Oh
it was
yes.
such a great experience. So yeah,
I
I
love
love Jaws. Jaws is a great film too. Totally agree.
yes. And I mean, again, I was like, I'm like, is it because I know of the debate of it's not horror, and I'm like, you know what, I'm
It
gonna
is.
check it, and I'm
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, to me, yeah, horror is a subjective concept. I think that to me, anything that affects you in a way that horror affects countless other people in different ways, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's defined by an experience,
Yes.
not of like the title of a film or the concept of a film. It's an experience, and if what you experience is horrific or horrible,
Yes. Or
you get
deliver
it. Like,
something to you, like that's yeah.
yeah. And I think that's one of the best things about having conversations like this is that everybody experiences horror through different lenses. And
Absolutely.
so, and we're usually on the same page. Like we like a lot of the same stuff. We feel very strongly about the same things in horror. Even
Yes.
like some of my hot takes, you'll be like, "Oh my God, me too." Like, and
And that doesn't happen a lot. Like, I mean, it
no,
does, but like to have like similar taste and like our hot takes, because there you'll talk to some people and it'll be
yeah.
completely different. I think you and I like hit it on the nose for majority of the stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that is like, and even still, I still feel like when we talk about stuff, I still feel like we get something out of those conversations, even having, those things in common. So that's what's great about them is everybody experiences horror different. And it doesn't matter if it's, first of all, I just think I think if you think that Jaws isn't a horror movie, you should have to wear tinfoil on your head so we know who you are. Because I feel like that's just
Yeah.
the most like ridiculous. I mean, like I said, bare minimum, it's a creature feature, like bare minimum.
Like
But yeah,
easy.
Jaws is definitely a horror movie.
I always feel like that with sharks, like you said, crocodiles, alligators, dinosaurs, werewolves, like that. Those are creature features to me.
They're monsters.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if a movie about a human being being a monster, as in like a terrible piece of shit, and they're a horrible person, and that's a horror movie. Why is it not like that when it's animals? Like,
exactly.
I don't understand. So
Yeah.
yeah, totally agree. Jaws is definitely horror. I'm carrying myself.
Yes, said it here, and it's a fact.
It's a fact. Yeah. So your next one is the only one on your list that I have not seen, but this is another one that you are constantly promoting and talking about love, giving a lot of love to, and that's Terrifier 2.
Yes, and it's so weird to have like an influential horror movie, like a newer one, but this one hit me so hard in like because I think you and I were discussing it. I was kind of like losing my faith in horror because I just
Yeah.
felt like we were getting a lot of Elevated, we were getting a lot of reboots,
Sure.
remakes, and I felt like nothing really original was coming in. And of course, I had the hot take. I loved Terrifier. I loved the 2016 one, and a lot of people hated it.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Did you watch that one?
I haven't seen anything related to Art the Clown. I haven't even seen, what is it, All Hallows Eve?
Yes. And
The
that's a really good
origin.
anthology.
Yeah,
Like if you like anthologies,
which I
like,
do.
yes, not even considering Art the Clown as being anything like relevant in it. It's a really good
I've
anthology.
heard good things. Yeah, it's not there. I will say there's no reason I haven't. It's
Yeah.
just not come up for me to watch. And I obviously wasn't going to make an effort to see Terrifier 2 if I hadn't seen the predecessors. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I haven't seen. It'll get there. I'll get there eventually.
I would love to have a discussion after you watch it because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. Because it's
Yeah.
very, it's just, like, okay, it's praised as like one of the goriest. People were passing out,
Oh.
fainting, puking, like
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like a little kid watching. I was so excited because it was exactly what I wanted in a horror movie. It felt very 80s. It was gory, but it was done so well. The fact that it's practical effects, I thought was
huge.
chef's kiss, because instead of like the CGI stuff, we need to have more practical effects back in it. But so like with and I hate to be like this because this is a really dirty analogy, but my thing for Terrifier is it's like people were like, there's no storyline, there's no character development. I'm like, well, it's kind of like porn. Like, what do you expect from it? It's a movie about a killer clown.
It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Like, you kind of go into it like, I didn't need to have a huge plot. I just knew that this guy was on the loose and he was crazy, and it delivered that. So I didn't really need too much more from it.
Yeah.
But this one, we get like stories, and we get the questions. And I had people come to me that hated Terrifier that love, and it was like like on their top 5 of 2022. But with all of that aside, to have someone do an independent film with little to no
Oh my God. Yeah.
promotion, and to have it blow up the way it did. And I always compare it to Halloween. It's very parallel to Halloween with how it blew up and how little they put into it and the longevity of it, because I see art staying around for a while. So very influential to me.
I think they've got 2 more movies planned at the minimum right now.
Yes, because didn't Ken say that they were doing 3 and he's already writing 4?
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably, you're right. That's where I heard it, was Ken saying that. Yeah. So they've got 1 figured and then 1 in the works. That's what it is. Okay.
Which is very exciting. But of course, like, there's me that's like, granted, I'd love to see more art, but I don't want to see things pumped out just for the sake of it. And I hope it doesn't go down the crazy storyline franchises. I won't name them because they're some of my favorites, but I hope we don't get these like different, let's connect the dots on it. But I absolutely love it. I watch it as like a comfort movie. Like, if I have nothing to watch, or I don't feel like investing my mind into something, and it's almost 2.5 hours long, I'll throw it on. I love it that much. It's funny. David Howard Thornton, his take on him, to not speak and to have so much come from his character, I think that says a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think, like, Terrifier 2 from the indie side of things has broken all kinds of records and stuff on the indie front. To be able to do something like that. And what's true is, you just touched on this, like this whole thing about getting nothing but the same stuff regurgitated over and over and over and over again. The same haunted house, the same murderer coming back after we've already chopped him up in little pieces and melted him into nothing. Somehow he's still alive. Like, these kind of things keep happening. So to be able to see not only a new franchise, but a new indie franchise, it's really nice. And I'm not even like, I mean, I like slashers. I don't have anything. It's just not my like favorite. But I like slashers, and it's definitely a subgenre of horror that needed a new face, a new something.
It needed a facelift because, like you just said, it was stagnant for me. Like, it was just like, okay, we had the Halloween trilogy, and I felt like that needed to be, I mean, it was, you know, created and then it was done, which I think was good, but we're not going to see the last of Halloween. And then we're getting, you know, like a Friday the 13th TV show, and we're getting like a backstory to Friday. I don't know. I just feel like instead of making franchises this and doing this take on this, having something new, having something fresh is very, it's nice. And I felt it, and I watched it so many times, and watching it in the big screen was amazing.
Yeah.
To see it on the big screen, and it made me feel a certain way, like not to sound cheesy, but I was emotional. I'm like, this, to see every day that you would check, you know, our feeds, you would see it's going to more theaters, and now it's made this much money, now it's in the millions, and I was just like, this is great. This is what we need.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I totally agree. And I will say this, even if I watch it and I just say hypothetically I hated it, I'd still have a lot of respect for what it's done, because the other thing is with these, especially with these small productions, not these big production companies that push out horror movies like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But when we have films like Terrifier 2 that can do what they do in the box office, and they're showing all these other players that like people will pay to go see horror, because horror always gets treated like, you know, the redheaded stepchild of the situation, where it's like they, you know, oh, it's a nothing genre. It's, you know, a bunch of weird people like that stuff. Nobody's going to watch it. And none of which is true, because it has huge fandoms.
Yep.
And so to see it go in and do something like this, and to be able to, and you couldn't pay me to think that these people didn't jump on the phones, because right after that we got announcements for everything.
And he was posting major like companies, like he was there, and I'm like, don't sell out though, don't do it, because that was a huge thing, was he wanted to stay on whatever it was, because other big companies wanted to dilute it. They wanted to make it less, and he was like, no, and he stayed true to it. And I'm telling you what, like, I don't like extreme horror. I don't like a lot of unnecessary, I'm not unnecessary, I'm not like a huge gore person, like an extreme gore person. And a lot of people can arguably say like this was one of the goriest ones that they've seen, but I feel like this one had such an 80s feeling that it didn't feel like I was watching a realistic house invasion, or like
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was not like it's fun, because when you watch it, you're going to be like, holy shit, like these people are nuts for even thinking of a kill like this. And that's another thing too, is kudos to going outside the box,
being creative
instead of like your norm, like throat slash, or, you know, whatever we get from slashers. Damien was like crazy, but it was kind of like, I don't want to say fun. I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I'm trying to say. It was it was beautifully executed, but I didn't feel like a certain way about it. Like I felt weird, or I felt like uncomfortable, like Last House on the Left. Like
you didn't walk out of it feeling heavy or and and to your point, I think like that's to me, which slashers, there's plenty of slashers that have depth, right? But at their core, they're not really meant to have like a lot of depth. They're meant to be over the top and fun. And a lot of the ones, especially like, you know, like with Scream, like just for example, Scream 5, I predicted most of the killer situation like really early on in the movie. And I feel like that part of that is like what you're saying, where it's like, it's not creative. They're using these same formulas, and they're replaying the same shit. And we've seen it all. So by the first 15 minutes of the movie, you're like, oh, totally no, husband killed the wife, and that's why the house is haunted, and it'll end and everything will be burned down. Like you can figure out the rest of the plot of the story just in the first little bit of time. And it's nice to know that people are finding things like Terrifier 2, where it does, you know, it does beat that expectation, and you're not able to just be able to predict every little thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, because if you went in there saying that you predicted anything, it's not. I mean, you could, and also like from hearing about it, but there was stuff in there that I never thought would come to surface, and I'm glad it did, because I love it. I just think it's so. It's great. And hopefully this opens the door for, like you said, more independent. And we've seen so many independent films like Skinamarink, The Outwaters.
Waters, yeah.
Yep. You know what I mean? Like we were seeing a whole bunch of, even Smile was independent.
I was going to say Smile was the one that really blew me out of the water. Smile broke records too, but unfortunately, time-wise, once Terrifier 2 was done doing its mess in the theaters, it like wrecked everything and was like, and it's, I mean, I think, the indie stuff has gotten better. And some of that's because you've got places like Shudder investing in indie horror. And now that these bigger companies are seeing that, hey, horror knows what it's doing. They're making money. They'll also be willing to put money into new voices, new filmmakers, new directors, new actresses and actors and the like. And I think like you can't deny the impact that films like this have, because it's like I just said, after this was done, like once it started, I think it went to Screenbox first, I think.
Yep.
Once this went to Screenbox, how many movie announcements for things did we get after that were horror, that were going to theaters? These were mainstream production companies revisiting, redoing, adding on whatever, because they were like, oh shit, like people will pay to come see it.
And it's true. And I love that, because maybe like people were scared to attempt to put new stuff out because like we were getting the same regurgitated thing. And that was the only thing that was really bringing in, revenue for movies. And I think that this was, and also too, it's opening the gates for horror combinations that I never knew I wanted. Like he was talking to Mike Flanagan, and I think his dark, like the visuals, but then Mike Flanagan's like ideas and stuff. I think that as a pairing is the pairing that I would never have thought of until now. And I want it because I love Mike Flanagan. And I think what he does is magical. And I think that add in a little Damien Leone spice, we're gonna have something good cooking in the kitchen. So I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Mike Flanagan is a phenomenal storyteller. Everything he touches is, I don't know. There's something about it. Like you said, magic is like the perfect word, I think.
And he seems like such a like wholesome, like, fun guy. And you get these like dark stories like Midnight Mass and, The Haunting of Hill.
That's probably my favorite one that he's done. Yeah.
That's mine too. And that's so controversial because people are like, oh, I hated Midnight Mass.
Who hated? All right, we're back to the tinfoil. Who hated Midnight Mass? Midnight Mass made my top list for 2021. I loved Midnight Mass. I like anything religion questioning, anything that takes religion and goes like this to it. I'm like, I'm in.
Yes,
this was so good, and I cannot believe no one had thought of this idea before. The Midnight Mass story. Why has that never been done? I don't know.
But I'm glad because I'm sure it would have been done well, but with Mike Flanagan's,
it was
like,
just
on it. There were so many scenes that got me and I was like, holy, and I loved the music, like still one of my top favorite, like shows, horror shows.
Yeah, same.
To this day. But so real quick, touching on, we were talking about like Shudder. Did you see the announcement for, cause it's funny. Cause like we got Speak No Evil on Shudder. They're remaking it already with James McAvoy. And
I know.
Did you see that?
So yeah, but see, here's the thing. Okay, so here's what's weird about that. Multiple things, right? First, I love James McAvoy though. I'm just gonna, I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is that like typically the norm is there's this fantastic foreign horror film. It's amazing. It's mind blowing. Everyone loves it. No one can get enough. And then we ruin it by making it in the States.
Yes.
But I didn't like, and you know this already because we talked about it. I didn't like the original.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how are they going to change this in enough of a way that maybe it will be good?
That was like my initial reaction because I enjoyed it. So I'm thinking, but my mind went exactly to what you said, like classic example, Rec Quarantine.
Yep.
Like that was just garbage. Horrible. And one of my favorites. Rec was one of my favorites. But
yeah, Rec is like everybody's favorite.
I know, because it's one. And how short was it? Like I could go off about that one for a long time. But
yeah.
I think it's good that they have James McAvoy in it because I think he will portray, I'm assuming, what's going to be the father. I think he'll do good, but it's just dependent on how much they water it down, how much
I think they need to change the story.
I do too. I mean, and that's wouldn't that be kind of like an example to do something maybe different and have like maybe the same premise ish, but a different, I don't know. I just feel like here we go again. That literally just came out and now we're remaking it.
That's
And
crazy. That's the fastest I think I've ever seen that happen.
I couldn't believe it when the girl was doing her movie news thing and that came up. I just was like,
Yeah.
jaw dropped. Like, okay, well,
Yeah, because it's been 2 years, a year.
yeah.
So either way,
it's crazy to me. I feel like Hollywood. How do we not have ideas?
I can't figure that. And the other thing is you couldn't tell me there's not people beating down the door trying to get their ideas out there.
That's what I mean.
Some of the stuff that I read from indie horror authors should 1,000% be in theaters. Should 1,000% be on Shudder and on every TV in every horror fan's home. Like,
yeah.
And I can't figure it out. And then meanwhile, we get like just I don't know. I don't know.
We get like a third Conjuring that's like mediocre.
Hey, I like the third Conjuring.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I didn't hate it. I was compared to the other two. I didn't.
We
feel
could not be friends anymore. I'm just kidding. No, it's not one that a lot of people liked. That is true. It is like of the three, that is the one that everybody like. But I actually really liked it. I liked it because it was so different from the other two, and I liked that James Wan is like stepping outside of his little comfort zone with like the same stuff over again, the same stuff over and over and over again. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I don't know. I guess we'll see, right? Because I mean, I like James McAvoy. I just did not like that movie, so I will not pay to see the remake. I will wait until,
I definitely will not be seeing that in theaters either, because I don't feel like that's a theater horror movie anyway. Because there's specific movies that I'm like, I'll wait until they or I'll just watch them on Shudder. But there are ones that you kind of have to see in the theater.
Yes, my 2 for the year is Scream 5 and Evil Dead Rise.
Yes.
Finally going to see Evil Dead Rise Friday.
Oh, I can't wait to hear what you think.
Yeah, so I think you know this. My partner and I work together, so we both put in for a half day. We're gonna leave work early and go see it in the theater.
That's great thinking, love. I would utilize.
You gotta do what you gotta do. We're both single parents. It's really difficult to just go do things like that, and I'm like, I gotta go see it before it's out on streaming. Like, I'm literally a horror content creator. Like, I cannot just not see this in theater. So anyway, we're gonna finally go see it on Friday. I'll probably message you after.
Yes, please. I'm excited for that and that's so quick how they go to streaming, because Renfield's already the Pope's Exorcist and Renfield's already coming to streaming. So it's not going to be too much longer. Yeah.
It's probably got about another 2 weeks. The rest of this week, maybe one more, and then we'll probably get the announcement that it's going to be on like video on demand or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So your number 4.
Did I put down the thing?
Huh?
The thing?
Yes. Thing.
I have to remember which one I put, if it was the other one or this one, but I went back and forth with An American Werewolf in London because I love that so much. And I feel like that's a
good one.
You know what I mean? Like, that was such a amazingly made horror comedy, feature creature. But
good movie. It's got like some feel good love stuff going on. Yeah.
Great soundtrack. Okay. And I know we're not talking about that, but still, I didn't pick that one, but it's such a good, and because I asked my husband after we talked, I'm like, well, what would be your 5? And he's like sitting there and he's like, Texas Chainsaw, Aliens. What else did he say? I think he even said American Werewolf in London. And I was like, shit. And I told him mine. And I was like, I have to put The Thing on there. The Thing is, in my opinion, the best like horror sci-fi.
Bar none. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to sound like a Carpenter like fanatic, but I just love pretty much anything he does. So it's classic. The whodunit aspect, just insane. The creature, the scene with the head, everything. It's just so goddamn good. And that's one movie that I can watch on repeat and not get sick of it. And like, look what it did for like the sci-fi genre.
Yeah. Well, and this is the benefit, right, of using practical effects over CGI.
Yes.
It's still gross and cringy. Like you watch it, the part with the husky like fucks me up every single time. And you're talking graphics from way back when. It's 2023. I could watch it right now, and those every time something happens where we get
Yes.
those beautiful practical effects, I am like so uncomfortable and bothered by them all. Like
I know, and
so
I
good.
hate animal death,
I
and
know.
that's like such a key part in it. And but I don't want to say it's like okay for me, but like I'll take that because it's done in such a I don't want to say like a classy way, but it's not like you see the dog dying and it's like whimpering and it's like a shot on that, like the noises that it makes and the things that are coming
Coming
out.
out
And
of it. Yeah.
I love it so much. And I love Kurt Russell.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
The whole cast is brilliant. And one of my all-time favorite scenes from horror in general is the part where, and I'm horrible with names, the gentleman's outside and he's kind of like got the red hair and they do the flare and he opens his mouth and just that sound comes out like
That's so unsettling. I
yes,
don't even like you talking it. Like you saying that, I'm just like, oh
because
God.
you can hear it and
You
it
can
just
hear
sticks
it in
in
your
your mind.
head.
But it's one of my favorites. I remember the first time watching it, I was like staring at the screen and I felt not like uncomfortable, but I was just like, oh, what is this? Like,
So
what's
bothersome.
happening?
Yeah.
And then like the ending is so open for interpretation because it's like who had it? Who gave it to who? Like, I don't know. It's such a fantastic horror movie. And the remake, the prequel or whatever you want to call it, or
I have never seen it.
I don't want to say that you're missing
It's
much.
well, and you know the reason I haven't watched it is because this is such and because the thing is so iconic.
Yes.
And then like I see randomly sometimes like one person will randomly post about it and be like, I don't know why everyone hates this. It's so good. I'm like, well, if everyone hates it.
It's really like hard for me to find someone who enjoyed it. I think I have seen a couple of people. It wasn't like the worst remake because I have, my opinions on what are horrible remakes and the worst one.
Oh, the worst is Black Christmas. Like
I know.
you
Like,
just can't get any worse than
I remember seeing like previews for your and Scott's episode, and I was like, "Oh, they hate it. Like they hate."
I had avoided it for 34 years. We're like, oh, it's Christmas. Let's do Black Christmas. Just like, oh God.
Instant regret. I mean,
Yeah, I think this year we'll probably do the other one, which I'm even less excited about. So
that one I still haven't seen, and I don't know.
I've never seen it either.
And I heard just as like when we kind of touched on it the last time that there's nothing to do with it, and I'm thinking, then why the hell do we even call it Black Christmas? Just call it
it's literally like just the name. Well, and that's the thing is like we were kind of talking about this with like movie mill type situations where they just push out these films. It's the same thing with this. It's like, oh, people love Black Christmas. They'll pay to see this. And then you've got fans of Black Christmas. Go ahead.
Yes. You have the fans of Black Christmas and they, their movie gets picked to be the one that's remade and have no connection to it. It's almost sad for the people who've made such an iconic movie to watch it be remade into something like what we got.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Well, I haven't seen the remake or the whatever it is of the thing. I've only seen the one we're talking. I have not seen the other one.
The storyline isn't bad. It's just the CGI is like unnecessary. And I feel like if you're going to go and do something like that, where you're having any sort of connection to the thing, you should be doing practical effects because
you can't pick a movie like The Thing and redo it without all practical effects. That is what there's two main things, but that is one main thing that made The Thing so impactful to so many people who saw it. Because this was the one that like didn't do well, and then all of a sudden it like blew up, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people, when they talk about it, that the scenes they remember the most of them, minus that one, all goes back to the practical effects. And I mean, I was just talking about this on my last episode of Influential Horror with Albert from Blood and Bruise. He's a big werewolf guy, like loves werewolves. And American Werewolf in London is on his Influential 5, and so was The Howling, I think. But one of the things that comes up is like if they ever redid either of those if they ever revisit them, same with The Thing, they better go practical or they're going to, nobody's going to be able to enjoy it.
Exactly. And like, I think they need to recognize that that is a huge factor that brought people to love the movie. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like American Werewolf in London is chef's kiss, and it's almost perfection.
It's literally, yeah, like it's so close to I have very, very few gripes about it. Very few.
And I don't even think that I like to even really talk about him because I feel like compared to another movie, I'm like, I will take this over.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like over something else compared to what we have. But like when they did American Werewolf in London, I wouldn't even watch it because it was CGI with Tom Everett Scott. So
yeah,
it is what it is. But the Thing, I think, is one of the most influential horror movies to be made. And
yeah,
I love that it kind of resurfaced and now has become a cult classic because I couldn't believe it. I asked because my husband's 9 years older than me. So, you know, his perspective and like the way that he experienced movies was different. He's like, yeah, like no one, it wasn't a huge
wild.
Hit. Wild to me. I was like, what?
And now you can't find any horror fan that doesn't have this on the top list. Like it's so unheard of.
I did see a horror account that said that they hated The Thing. And I was like,
canceled.
Slow blank. And I like the person. So I was just like, okay, but why? Like, and I was, but that's they're entitled, but I couldn't believe it.
That's wild because The Thing is definitely something that most almost all horror fans have a mutual respect for. I mean, it's just something that it's iconic. It's, I mean, the like I said, the practical effects bar none. Like there is no film, in my opinion, in the horror side of the world that did practical the way this movie went hard. Like,
oh yeah.
And like, you've got all this social commentary on relationships in times of crisis and what happens. And it's a layered one, and I have a lot of love and respect for it.
But I think that's John Carpenter's like recipe. He has so many like layers to a movie, like with either effects, the visuals, the music, the cast. Like he was such a amazing horror chef, I call him, because he's just such he knows
stuff together. And
yes. And I think, I mean, God love him. I love the man. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that takes us to your last one. And this one is on my list for influential horror, which I'm sure you knew.
Yes. And I feel like it has to be. I feel like this one kind of like was the movement, and this one rejuvenated life into horror. And
1,000% agree. 1,000% agree. Yeah.
I watched it when I was kind of like, 8 or 9 years old. So it was at that time where I was still scared of stuff, but I wanted to like branch off and do something different. And when I watched it, I was fucking traumatized. I watched it in my mom's office, and she had a little TV VCR.
Oh my God.
She was a travel agent. So they had like the travel agent videos, and I got it, and I was daytime, and I watched the opening scene, and I was like, I shut it off. I was like, nope, I don't think I can do this. But it's Scream.
Scream.
Yeah. The original. That movie is still one of my all-time favorites. And it's just such
1,000%. Yeah.
And then we got Wes Craven. Like, what else can you say about the man?
He had this knack for breathing life into things that we forgot about. Like, and the slasher genre or subgenre rather is something he breathed life into. And of course, I think we talked about this on the Slasher Live, because around after Scream, we got all those other movies, the Urban Legend movie, the
I Know You Did.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, like there's a bunch of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm, I'm thankful for, because I loved that time. I loved the
fun
outpour of like these, like, you knew it was going to be a horror movie because of like the previews and the dimension, sign coming down. And then arguably, I think that Scream 2 is almost as good, in my opinion, as the first one. I love 2.
Scream 2 is my opinion, the strongest sequel that exists in the horror world. Yeah,
I agree. That I will stand by that 100%. And then I almost did the oopsie cancellation of myself by talking about the underrated slasher being Roman, because I love him.
I want so badly to be your friend. You
Jordana,
don't
why are
like
you
Conjuring 3. You like Roman way too much. No, I look, I have a lot of I don't hate a single Scream film. Period.
Yes,
I
yes,
don't hate a single one. I just have to have my least favorite, and my
yeah.
least favorite just happens to be 3.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's like a, it doesn't, it's not a personal thing. It's like, it has to be this way because you can't
I
compete
think
with
it
one and
does a
two.
lot of things that are still really great. I think and the biggest twist of course of that not wasn't even just the background stuff, the family related stuff, but was that there was just one.
Yeah.
Because Scream, the original, changed the game. There wasn't just one killer, there was two.
And it was, and that's okay. So I'm glad. So going back to that one, I love that it was, because I know that we go off on like our tangents,
Yeah.
but I loved how he did. It was so obvious who the killer was, but he made it like that, like
It's a mind game.
it is a mind game, but then you have like the rules and you know how horror movies go. So you're like, okay, boyfriend is number one suspect, but then all this stuff happens and you're like, is it, is it not? And you go
Yeah,
back and
his
forth. And then,
boyfriend's in jail for one of the times that, like, so you're like, and then you just immediately you're just like, what do I do with that information?
yeah.
Like,
And then I think the reveal was one of the most iconic moments that
oh
I've
my
experienced in
God.
where when you find out when he shoots Randy and he delivers, Norman Bates classic line, and you're just like, oh shit. And I loved too, me being so young watching it, the Halloween in the background and all the references to horror like E.T.'s mom and the howling and just,
All those
paying.
horror movie references inside it. The Exorcist one F's me up like every time.
Yes. But I love it because and that was another one that was gonna go on the list because I feel like The Exorcist is such a,
Mm.
for me, I love The Exorcist, but
Mhm.
these ones I feel like not that they did more because The Exorcist just made me shit my pants and make me scared of stairways looking at him because I thought she was gonna
So
come down.
scary. That movie's scary.
It is. And then here we are now getting a remake. But I don't know. Scream is just, you can't, it's undoubtedly one of the best horror movies ever made. And it changed the game for horror. It created new life into the genre. And look, 26 years later, we have just got a Scream. So that has to say something for what they've done. And
Yeah.
rest in peace, Wes, because I miss him. Because as much as I loved, I will say it, this is a therapy session. I'm admitting it right now. I love Six. I really, truly, the more I watch it, I'm like, I
I
enjoy
need to
it.
rewatch it. I have only seen it the one. I went and saw it in theater, but it's streaming now on Paramount, so you can watch it. If you
Yes,
didn't know, it's streaming on Paramount Plus.
it's streaming. It's streaming
Yeah,
right now.
it's streaming, so you can watch it now. I need to revisit it. I won a Blu-ray of 5 last year,
Oh,
which was really exciting.
super exciting.
But I liked 5 better than 6. But I have a lot of complaints about both.
Yes.
And I'm a big Scream head. Like Scream is influential horror for me as well. It's on my list. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like it's top tier for me, and it's a franchise that is very near and dear. And it's one of few that, as I grew up, I was kind of growing with them. And then by the time we got to 4, I was a lot older, so I was able to really appreciate it. And then now, obviously us being adults and watching them now, but a lot of love for the Scream franchise in general. But the first one just did things that no slasher before it had done, really. You've got some slashers that do attempts at meta stuff, right? Like there's the one from the 50s called like Peeping Tom or something like that, that's got some meta stuff going on with it. And there's some other stuff in black and white, and there, the list goes on, and there's plenty of stuff that you can really, tear apart, but not in the delivery method that Scream gave us. Like there was just not like, we didn't see this coming. You killed the highest paid actress on your payroll within the first 15 minutes of the movie. She's in the front of the poster. She's in all the advertisements.
Yep.
You add the effect of the 2 killers. Like there's just so much going on with it, and the relationship dynamics. It's like, it's such a great film.
And the character development, because that's one cast that I truly still love, and you just like resonate with those characters. And like, look, they're still doing conventions. They're still just as because there's a new generation that has been exposed to Scream, and I love that because I wasn't a huge fan of 5. I felt like they were doing something different with it, which I know movies are supposed to evolve. I get it, but I just didn't feel that connection with 5.
Sure.
Granted,
Sure. Yeah.
I think that there's the same in 6. Like there's flaws, but I'm
Mhm.
learning to just like I felt like 6 felt more like a Scream movie to me to make me feel like a certain way. But
Yeah.
again, I'm just happy that people have this. People, it's number 1 on their list, and that's amazing. And I think that's so I don't know, like that's good for them because
Yeah.
obviously, they love it so much. So either way, it's done a lot for the horror genre and
Totally agree.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's my
No, Scream was
list.
great.
Yep.
That's our 5.
Yeah. That's my 5.
Halloween 78, Jaws, Terrifier 2, The Thing, and Scream. Yeah, that's a good list for variety.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of give, but again, I always feel like I talk about these movies, which is fine because I stay true to what I love.
Yeah.
But in another sense, I was thinking, well, like influential, you got Freddy, you got Psycho, Nightmare on Elm Street, you got Psycho. There's so many influential horror movies that I feel like could have made the list, but I got to stay true to my faves.
No, these are great. And thank you for making time to do this. It was, spoiler alert, it's the night before the video goes out because Angel is poor planning. So thank you for being so open to making it work so we could get this in.
Anything for you. Honestly, if you were to tell me, hey, we need to record at like 8 tomorrow, I would totally record with you again. So, no problems there, love.
So that's it for this episode of 5 Influential Horror. Jordana's social stuff will be in the description for this episode as always. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and we'll see you in the next one.